Good evening. I'm your host, David Day, for ThinkTech's global broadcast. This is Asia in Review. And this evening we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and protecting the essential business. And to help us with this conversation, we have a cybersecurity consultant for U.S. nuclear power plants and formerly the IT Director or Auditor for Hawaiian Electric Industries. In the studio with us, Mr. Amin Leiman. Amin, nice to have you with us.
Thank you, David.
You know, I was in thinking about what it is that you do. I mean, if we set aside the security for cyber hacking and penetration and attacks on U.S. military bases, and we take the private sector, my guess is at the top of the pyramid, the most sophisticated, the most critical, is that of trying to secure a nuclear power plant against cyber terrorism, cyber attacks. Am I missing something there?
I think you're absolutely correct because of the potential impact if the nuclear facility or plants are being hacked.
So what as we go down this pyramid, if you will, in the private sector, we've set aside the
Right.
impact of military bases. So we're going to be talking about the private sector today. What's the next most important industry in terms of security and protection in your own mind?
Well,
We come down from a nuclear power plant. What's next?
I guess after that, I would say any electric plants, right?
So the energy
The energy industry, all the power plants, because with the electricity, we'll have problems.
Okay, if we drop down one more layer,
Now, I
what do
would
we
say
get?
banking, right?
Okay.
Because banking has financial implications.
Well, let's do this for this particular show. Let's use the industry that you're familiar with, and that is the nuclear power plants,
Yes.
as one case study for discussion.
Okay.
And then let's also use the banking industry.
Sure.
As a second case study, because
Sure.
I think people can relate to both of those
Yes.
a little bit, and and they're indicative of the problem throughout the private sector in essential businesses.
Right.
And I think, you know, ladies and gentlemen, to put this all in perspective here, just today, I mean, I noticed that the Japanese government is conducting a cybersecurity, like a fireman's drill, if you will, with involving a whole series of their
Yes.
ministries and
Yes.
so forth. And you know, this Asian Review program, what we try to do, one week we're talking about national security or foreign policy, geopolitics. The next week we're talking about international business. And this whole area of cybersecurity that you're involved in, you know, it is an international business.
Yes.
And involves a lot of cooperation and so forth. Do we have the type of testing and fire drills in the United States, in your industry, that Japan is conducting within its own government right now?
Yes, we do. I guess to give you just a generic background, you know, here in Honolulu, we always have a fire drill in our buildings, right?
Right.
The
right.
objective is to stimulate or simulate if there is a real fire. So the thing about that, in the electronic world, we have a similar systems that we try to practice if an actual attack is being done. In the banking world, by regulations, all banks are required to do what we call a penetration testing, meaning we...
What does that mean?
Well, it means that we either hire somebody from outside or somebody from inside to do a simulated hacking kind of thing. So you're trying to penetrate the system from external, and you can do it two ways. One is without knowledge, and one is with knowledge. Or you can do a hybrid of both of them.
So let me see if I understand that. So what you're saying is that a bank
Yes.
or another essential enterprise typically has something like a counterterrorism team.
Correct.
And their job is to try to punch holes in the digital walls, if you will, of the enterprise.
Correct.
And so when you were working with Hawaiian Electric
Yes.
here in Hawaii, you were the Director of IT Audit.
Right.
And so what is that job? Is that kind of like the field marshal of the counterterrorism team, or is it something different?
More like the military officer or military police, if you will, in the military world. So you have the military and you have the military police, right? So our job is to make sure that all the IT controls are in place. What we do is we do an annual risk assessment, looking at overall risk, and then we actually assess the risk and we give recommendation. There's another group who actually implement the design and implement the risk. The group it's called information assurance. So that's the name of that group in my previous employer.
Okay, and so now currently,
Yes.
within the nuclear industry, what is it that you do?
I am part of a team called a CSAT.
CSAT.
CSAT. It stands for Cybersecurity Assessment Team.
And what does that team do?
What we do is we assess the critical computer system within a nuclear plant, looking specifically for the CDAs, which is the critical digital assets, and looking at their controls to make sure that the controls are working as intended. So then the nuclear facilities are protected.
All right, let's hold on a second.
Right.
Let's translate that. Does that mean that you're in a group that's trying to punch holes in the system?
Not necessarily. I mean, if
Testing it.
if need to, we'll punch hole. But we're actually looking at the controls of the digital assets, the critical digital assets, and that critical digital asset could be as complex as a laptop, right? Because a laptop can control either plant computer systems or control the equipment within the facility.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we want to try to do today is in this conversation with Mr. Leiman, we want to find out how it is that you hack into a bank or a nuclear power plant, and then what is it that those essential businesses do to protect themselves from that hacking. And to get started on this, I mean, let's define a few terms here. What is this term we talk about, cybersecurity? Well, what does that really mean?
Well, in a broader term, cybersecurity is anything that is electronically out there, right? Your cybersecurity. So anything that has a digitized component is what we call a cyber world. And how do you protect that digital world is through cybersecurity, right?
Okay, and so what does the term hacking refer to now? Most people think of hacking they've watched Mission Impossible or one of these shows, and they see this geek and he's on his keyboard, and then the numbers flash, and boom, he's inside the system and changing the lights and changing the elevator.
Correct. Well, most people think hacking is an electronic hacking. That, like you just said, somebody just going into the computer and hack or gain unauthorized access to your computer system. That's typically what people understand. But there's another side of hacking, which is called human hacking, which is human hacking is social engineering. That's the industry term, meaning I try to gain unauthorized information from human first as my first step in order for me to gain unauthorized access to the computer system. Right?
You mean there are hacking teams that are going after people on a social level to obtain digital information to be able to punch into a system unauthorized?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
But beyond that, the industry common methods of due to social engineering hacking, there are 3 different methods. For example, they can send you a fake phone calls. Okay. The whole idea is impersonate somebody else to gain information. You can do it through phone calls. You can do it through emails, fake emails with fake email addresses. You would respond and click on that email so I can gain your PII, your personally identifiable information. Or I can actually walk to a branch, a branch pretending to be a vendor and gain unauthorized information. So this is called social engineering. That's
kind of like the Mission Impossible, pretending like you're the computer repairman or the printer guy.
Correct. I would have a fake ID, fake business card. Everything is fake.
Wow. Well, let's as we're talking about this, I'm thinking of this whole field coming into. Let's focus on the banking case study.
Got it.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking about this whole field of online banking.
Yes.
And what does that mean for the whole field of cybersecurity? The fact that I, along with a lot of our listeners, I'm sure, or viewers, use an online banking of some fashion.
Yes, yes, yes. If you look at the whole industry, banking industry right now, a lot of the responsibilities of either recording a transaction
Right.
or processing checks are being passed over to us as consumer, right? Because before, like, let's take a simple example. In the old days, if you want to deposit a check, we still do this. We'll physically take the check to the bank.
Right.
Now we have mobile banking. We can pull out our smartphone, take a picture, and that's the deposit. We call it RDC, remote deposit capture, right? So
Okay.
a lot of responsibilities now is coming to us as a consumer to do that. So with that, you need to have electronic controls, right? Because you're capturing significant information, including your account number, right? And your name and your address and so forth. So the controls are moved to the consumer now in terms of that part, that piece,
Okay,
right?
I follow
But beyond it, behind it, the technology has a lot of control. So the hackers out there, right? Because of this online banking, they would try to, once they gain control, then they can do a lot of negative things to your account.
So they obtain access to your bank account unauthorized and
Correct.
do all kinds of nasty things.
They can transfer, right? Of course, there's a lot of built-in protections within the online banking system. There's a limit of amount that you can transfer, right? You need to preset. There's a lot of built-in controls. It's not as simple as
Right.
it seems, but the point I'm trying to make is that there are a lot of possibilities.
Okay, well, let's go to this topic because I've noticed that I there's a different access when I do online banking from my office, and then if I ever do it from any other place other than my office, it asks for different information. Why is that?
Well, the computer systems, the built-in protection system has a smart feature that will know the actual location where you're coming through the system without being too technical. So that's the first lines of defense. Once they know, they ask you, is this a private computer or is it a public computer, right? Because when when it's public, then it will have
Another line of defense.
line of defense, right?
Okay. You mentioned this concept of social media, social engineering.
Yes.
And we'll probably have to carry this on after the break here. But
Sure.
I'd like you to at least start here because that to me is fascinating because it's a non-electronic intel gathering
Yes.
exercise, right?
Yes.
It
is.
So you forget about the geek in the basement in his
Correct.
underwear doing the keyboard thing.
Right.
And then, so how does that actually take place? How does the social engineering intel gathering take place with hackers? How do they do it?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, there are three ways they do it. Yeah, the most common electronic way is they send you a fake email. Ask you, David, you just want a price, click on this, and you click on it.
Okay.
Or the most sophisticated one now is like your Gmail account has expired, so you need to click on this. You need to re-authenticate your user ID, your password, right? A lot of people are not. If they're not careful, you can just click it and you just enter information. But a lot of people now are very savvy, so they would stop. It depends on, in a moment of weakness, you can just provide the
but the
information.
question I'm getting at, I understand that, and
Yes.
how do they do this in the physical world, the social engineering, the
the
intel gathering,
Yeah.
without using digital?
Without using digital, in the case of the bank, you can impersonate a vendor, like a printer vendors, right? To come into the bank, walk up to the branch, and thinking, I'm here to fix your printer. Right?
Okay, now what about human hacking? How does that work?
The human hacking is also part of it. If I wanted to gain some information, let's say I have a target, a certain company.
Okay, hold on a second
Right.
now. The target,
Yes.
we're going to come back to the target and how hackers get after you personally when we come back after the break. So stay with us.
Thank you.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidell. This is ThinkTech Hawaii, broadcasting live from the Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. We raise public awareness about tech, energy, and globalism in Hawaii. Technology is critical to our state. A vibrant tech sector will give us new prospects in the global marketplace and will offer great careers and make our economy more resilient. Streaming live on Ustream and Spreaker, ThinkTech allows its hosts and guests invaluable opportunities to report important events and discuss important questions, and to be heard here in Hawaii and around the world. You can find links to our live streams on thinktechhawaii.com or on our mobile website, m.thinktechhawaii.com. And you can see our archive on YouTube. It's all just a click away. We want to do whatever we can to keep Hawaii relevant, connected, and thriving in the complexity of the 21st century. We hope you will help us in those efforts. Tune in today. This is ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidell. Mahalo.
We're back. I'm David Day. This is Asian Review. Our program, Cybersecurity, Protecting the Essential Business, and our special guest, a U.S. cybersecurity consultant for nuclear power plants, Mr. Amin Leiman, and formerly the IT auditor for Hawaiian Electric Industries. Amin, nice to have you back.
Thank you, David.
Now, right before the break, we got into a kind of a really interesting little piece there about how hackers do the physical approach in this concept called social engineering. And so the question that I want to ask is, how do they do this when we're not talking about getting emails from them? And let's say we want to hack into a bank.
Right.
And how do we get the information to punch into that bank from the employees or whatever, without doing the mission impossible going into their system? How do we do this physically?
One simple way is there are a lot of information security conferences, right, all the time. So let's say there is a banking information security conference that all the banking network engineers or the security professionals attend. The hackers will be one of them. You don't know. They could assume it's somebody else. And then they'll be sitting next to you. Let's say you are the information security professional of the bank.
And I'm at this conference in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, exactly. We're taking, studying information security. And the first thing I would ask from you is, what is your business card? We exchange business card.
Okay.
Through your business card, I get your name and email address. Usually I will have your title. Let's say your title is Information Security Officers. Then I know that you are the Information Security Officer. Now what I need to do...
This is scary stuff,
I mean,
man.
that's as simple as that, right?
Okay, then what?
Then I'm going to talk stories with you. Nothing to do with the bank. Hey, David, what do you like to do? Right? What do you do in the weekend? What kind of sports you like?
Man, what's the point of doing that chit-chat?
I'm trying to assemble, I'm creating a profile that I'm gathering information that will be useful for my hacking attempt later. Because what I want to do is to try to get a better understanding of the things that you like. So, for example, then I can guess your passwords if that would be one of the control that is very important, is to have a complex password. I also need to gain a better footprint. Footprints mean I want to know how big your network is, what kind of protection you have. In the computer system, we have an IDS and IPS, right? IDS is intrusion detection services.
So just by talking shop, you get a start to get a picture of the system that I try to protect.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I got you. All right.
So I'm getting generic information: what kind of systems, how old the system is, how big is your staff, right?
Okay.
What kind of software do you use?
All right.
That kind of generic info. But those information are very, very useful, which I may be able to sell it to real hackers as a commodity out there, right? Because, those things are being traded in the internet.
Boy. Okay, so what about we finish the conference and we have a cocktail gathering at some bar or some reception? Then what? What's the possibility then?
Well, the possibility is then I wanted to find out more, right? By challenging you, well, David, is your system really secure? Then you're going to brag, of course. So how do you defend your system? And you're going to start talking, I have this, I have that, I have that. Those are very good information that I can gather from you.
So what you're saying is that the human personnel in a bank or another essential business are potential physical security holes to punch in if they leak information, even inadvertently, to a hacker gathering that type of information.
Correct. And I'm glad you mentioned the word inadvertently, because the person doesn't even know, right? So hence, any experienced information security professional has the right mindset. So they are very conscious at all times.
What do you mean by the mindset?
Mindset is your philosophy or your discipline, your training, that you need to preserve all confidential information, and you are very conscious. First of all, you are aware that this thing happened. You're not unaware, and the fact that you're aware makes you more alert, right? So you cannot be social engineered, right? As simple as if I go to a banking conference, I don't want to put my banking on my T-shirt or on my polo shirt. I work for this bank. Yeah. I'm trying to be as generic as possible, so they cannot they cannot
hack you.
Human hack me. That's the word.
Okay.
Yeah, you cannot.
Okay.
Yeah. The more information I can piece together. Let's say you go to a conference, you wear aloha shirt.
Right.
I know you're from Hawaii.
Okay.
Right? And you told me you work for a bank. There's not too many banks here.
Well, it's
So I
almost
go-
a dead giveaway.
There you go. Okay, that's all. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What is this? Will fit this whole discussion together now with this? What I gather is an enormous surge in not only in the United States but globally in
Yes.
the whole online banking system. What is it? What are the ramifications of this for cyber hackers?
It's huge because, as I mentioned earlier, we are so dependent on electronic transaction, right? We're going mobile now. Everything is on our mobile devices, right? If you have an iPhone, you're backing everything on iCloud.
Okay.
So a lot of personal data, your pictures, private pictures are going out there, right? So if I can gain access to your iPhone, gain access to that data, nowadays I have more information that I can use for hacking purposes. So as we get more entrenched or more glued to this electronic world, then the hacking is becoming more prominent.
So what's the risk that like one of our major banks gets hacked? What's the risk to me as a consumer?
Well, the bank has to comply with a Graham Leach and Bliley Act, which in essence is protecting PII, personally identifiable information, right? If the bank get hacked, then the information is being breached. There is a penalty, and there is all kind of things happening. And also in Hawaii, we have Hawaii Identity Theft Law that will protect the PII also, and there's requirements and penalty involved as well. So from that legal perspective, there are problems, right? Then from reputations, once you're getting hacked, then your bank's reputation will go down, right? But then more importantly is if you're getting a true hacking is when the perpetrator able to actually transfer money, right? But there are a lot of controls within the bank.
You know, this hacking of a bank tends to be going into one specific file, one specific account, pulling the information or transferring at least one at a time. Are the hackers able to get in sometimes and just do a wholesale group of accounts and move money out? You know?
Well, it's like the most recent case, as you probably know, right? They were hacking this system to do a debit card transaction, which is a combination of actually using an ATM cards to withdraw cash kind of thing. So that's the more like collective attack on the banking
They're
system.
picking on a whole group of debit cards at one time.
Correct. And then they're able to pieces all this information to actually create an unauthorized withdrawals of the money.
Well, we'll get in, because this is almost approaching a cyber espionage. We'll get to that later in the show here. Let's do this. Let's step it up now. Let's move from the case study of how to hack and talk about some of the preventive measures for the banking industry. Let's step it up. Let's go to nuclear power plants now. And you mentioned the mindset.
Yes.
And I'm assuming there's something about your mindset that is attractive to someone who's running a nuclear power plant in terms of getting on their counterterrorism or cybersecurity team. Mm-hmm. And that's again, what I want you to do is explain again to me, what is that mindset?
Well, the mindset of our professions is we have this information protection mindset. It becomes our ingrained culture that our job is to protect information. In a nuclear facility, the big thing about a nuclear facility is what this thing called SSEP, which stands for Safety and Safety Related and Emergency Preparedness functions of the systems. So safety is big in nuclear facilities.
And for our audience, explain what the safety or the health risks are on a nuclear power plant if somebody gets in and takes over who has bad intentions.
Right. So as you know, the core part of the nuclear facility is the nuclear core, right, where it has this uraniums that is being used as fuel, and it becomes irradiated once the fission process happens, and then those things needs to be protected because there's a radiation, right? But before we get into that, if you think about it, there are layers, physical layers of control within a nuclear plant, right? So I, as a nuclear facility, security professional, I have to pass all the background check and everything. And the first line of defense, the area that I work for, is called owner control area. Then once I get, the next step is it's an area called PA, protected area. Then you need a different qualification to get into that physical.
You know, I have this picture of like this medieval castle.
Yes.
And it's got this outer moat.
Correct.
And then it's got this giant wall.
Yes.
And then inside there's another
Yes.
wall and
Yes.
a building inside of the third wall.
Correct.
And each one of those they got to come through and pass some kind of guard.
Correct.
To get through that.
Correct.
But in an electronic era,
Yes.
you know, you don't have people physically running from one wall to the next, opening the little window and talking to each other.
Yeah.
How do they communicate within those various layers, which is what you're describing?
Well, there's still physical layers, right? But there's also electronic layers, right? But let's talk about the physical layers first, so we can get a better idea. Like, so when I first get into my office area, I have this ID, right? Which is, in essence, is being authenticated. When I scan it, is being authenticated electronically against a database, correct?
Okay.
So if that is being hacked, I can have a fake ID to get into this first line of defense.
All right.
When I go to the second line of defense, I need another authentication, which is a geometry.
Okay. So
I need to register my hand first before I can get into the second area. So now my hand is being authenticated against my ID, and the guard look at my face. So everything is authenticated, right, before I can get into the area. So there is a protection, but all the hand geometry, first when I registered, is captured electronically to a database. Then when it's being authenticated, it's also being authenticated electronically.
So why, when every time there's a communication, there's the potential for a hacking.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. Right. Because you can intercept, and then you can do a lot of things. So this piece of equipment is considered CDAs in this particular example, the hand geometry control equipment. It's classified as part of CDAs, which stands for critical digital assets.
What are some of the things that could go wrong? Somebody who wanted to make a cyber attack on one of the plants that you've been working on, and your work with a nuclear power plant is kind of like being on a counter-terrorism team, right?
Right.
Of some sort.
Right.
And so you're both testing the system and trying to plug the holes and that whole fire drill.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing about any nuclear facility is security, right? So is that concept of security, the layers of defense.
Well, what can a hacker do? What kind of damage can they do with a nuclear power plant? Why is it at the top of the pyramid for risk?
Right. Well, if you remember the Stuxnet.
Stuxnet virus. This is the one where they had damaged some nuclear facilities in Iran, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And how did that happen? Because it was actually physically through a flash drive, right, being attached to. So a flash drive, like in any companies, if you have a virus in there, could damage any computer system. So if you are working inside a nuclear facility, usually they have a system before you can use this flash drive. You have to sanitize. Do a health check on that flash drive before you can plug it into your computer system, right? So this is very strictly enforced. Non-nuclear facilities might have policies, but they're not strictly enforced. But a nuclear facility is strictly enforced for that very reason. Because typically in in any plants, in a nuclear plant, you also have computer plant systems that actually control the turbine. And there's a lot of digital equipment part of that.
You know, I want to talk with you further about some other techniques that or attacks that hackers make or attempt to make on nuclear power plants when we come back after the break.
Sure.
So ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Asian Review with our guest Amin Leiman, a United States nuclear power plant security consultant. And our topic is cybersecurity, protecting the essential business, and we'll see you on the other side of the break.
I'm Bill Spencer, President of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association. We do monthly luncheon programs with ThinkTech about things that matter to Hawaii entrepreneurs, investors, and business service providers. So join us on the fourth Thursday of every month at the Plaza Club. For information about upcoming events or to join our mailing list, visit hvca.org. See you there.
We're back. I'm your host, David Day. This is a ThinkTech Global broadcast. The show is Asia in Review, and we're talking with Mr. Amin Leiman, a United States nuclear power plant security consultant. And we're going to be talking, as we have throughout this whole program, about kind of the how-to, and then what do you do to protect some of the essential businesses. And we've talked earlier in the program about the whole banking industry and hacking into a bank and the ways that hackers get access. And we're now talking about the nuclear power plant. And I mean, right at the break, you were talking about the difference in the way a nuclear power plant handles its security with the badges that are hooked to a data network, the geometric pattern on a fingerprint,
Right.
and also the security of not using flash drives like we would in an ordinary business.
Right.
But I'm curious about this whole technique called DDoS.
Okay.
Have I pronounced that correctly?
Yes.
DDoS. This is and what is this technique as a type of a cyber attack on a nuclear power plant, a critical business, or a bank? What is that all about? What is a DDoS attack?
Well, generally a DDoS attack, well, first of all, DDoS stands for Distributed Denial of Service Attack, right? So it's an attack against your email system. So typically, if you're Microsoft Shop, you have an Exchange server. So the idea is flooding your email system with millions of emails, so then your email system stops to function. When it stops to
I feel that way that I've been attacked every morning when I come into my office. I look at how many emails I got.
Right. Exactly. So
this is stepped up a little bit, yeah.
So imagine, and each email system has a quota, right? You can't have unlimited space.
Right.
So when that space is being filled up, the whole server is being filled up, and it just stops functioning and breaks down the whole email system. So you brought up a very interesting point. As you come to the office, what's the first thing you do? You check your email. If you cannot check your email, you're going to go crazy, right? So the business stop functioning. Now, so the email system is very, very important. So take this example, if it's in a nuclear plant, if you cannot communicate with the email system, we have other ways to communicate, by the way, so no problem. There's a phone, there's a radio, so there are backup methods in the plant itself. The plant itself is safe. The plant itself is safe from that perspective, but from the office function, right? Because the plant has a lot of backup system, right? There's all kind of ways. But in terms of the DDoS, why is it so important is it actually attacks the main system, and it kind of occupies the whole computer team to resolve that situation.
Okay, so what if there's a DDoS attack on a nuclear power plant and the email system is shut down? Then what?
I guess the worst thing that could happen is that it might just be a confusion for a little bit on how to, what kind of, it's probably just temporary. And again, it doesn't impact the plant itself, because the plant itself is self-contained, the operation of the plant itself. But potentially from the outside, if there are simultaneous attack, that might prohibit people to exchange information. Right?
What's the real danger category of cyber attacks on a nuclear power plant or an essential? What are the things that scare you the most?
I think one of the big protection in any nuclear plant is we do have a radiation monitoring system, right?
Radiation monitoring.
Right.
Okay.
So if which has a digital equipment that part of that, whether it's computer, laptop, or whatever system, or a piece of equipment that has a critical digital assets. So if you hack to that, and then your monitoring system is not producing an accurate reading, then you have a problem. Right? So that could be a problem. Right? But a lot of built-in control within the nuclear plant will prevent a major damage or anything like that.
Is there a cybersecurity Stuxnet type fear that you have of getting into the reactor itself and causing some malfunction?
Well, here's the thing, right? If you any reactor system needs cooling, so it's usually being in some facilities near the ocean. So you pump the ocean water to cool it, and the cooling will prevent all kind of potential negative effects.
Which is what the problem that happened at Fukushima.
Right. So if you hack to that system, right, a hacker hacked to the cooling system, so the cooling system is not functioning properly, then you'll have a problem with the reactor, correct? If a hacker somehow put a virus into the plant computer system, the turbine might stop working. It might send all kind of problems. So there's potential physical problems.
When a nuclear power plant is set up and licensed to operate, do they have some kind of procedures that they go through that are required cybersecurity walls that have to be set up?
Yes, basically all 100 plus US licensed nuclear units, we call it, they're regulated by the NRC, and they all submitted a plan of their critical systems. And without getting technical, the guidance that we use, the NEI 08-09, that's the guidance.
Sounds technical to me.
They're very technical. So they all have to submit that. I think most of them submitted by sometimes in August 2010.
What is that, a cybersecurity plan of some kind?
Yeah, a cybersecurity plan, correct. So basically the cybersecurity plan has 8 milestones. Milestones mean commitments, meaning that here I am as a nuclear facility, I will commit that I'm going to do this 8 milestones, 8 commitments. The first commitment is I have to establish a team called CSAT, which stands for Cybersecurity Assessment Team, which consists of the plant engineers, the cybersecurity assessment team.
So are you on that team?
I'm on that team, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on that team. So the team objective is to accomplish all the assessments that are required by the milestones. And the thing is, when you submit it to the NRC, then the NRC will tell you, okay, David, your facility, based on this, we review all the requirements that by 2015 December you have to comply with all of these. Otherwise, you don't have a license to operate. Everything is regulated and licensed by the NRC. So strictly enforced.
Okay. I mean, in the course of this show, what you've talked about so far is in using the case study of the banking industry, kind of how hackers get information both electronically as well as physically, sitting next to me at a conference as an example.
Right.
And so that you've described how to get in, and then in the course of this discussion on a different case study involving nuclear power plants, you've kind of laid out the concentric rings of protection, if you will, that exist in the cyber world for a nuclear power plant. And what if you were going to address a group of CEOs who are owners or managers of critical, essential businesses? What are some of the recommendations that you would give them? What would you advise them to do?
Well, the first line of defense, I would say you need to have a complex password. Right? That's the first line of defense. Most people are lazy, or most people are tired of having several passwords. So because you got a banking password, you got your Gmail password, all of these different passwords that you have to remember.
Hey, by the way, before you answer your question, how do you remember all your passwords? How do you do that?
There are tricks.
No,
it's a mindset.
Okay, all right. I shouldn't go there with you, right? Okay, all right. Go ahead. Finish your answer.
Yeah. So anyway, complex means you use a combination of characters and special characters and numbers. There's upper and lower case. You can be creative in creating your password, right? Even like your name. I don't want to hack your name, but by divulging your full name. But if I know your full name, you can still play around with the combination at your birthday here and there. So it makes it hard for me to guess, right? So complex password is one of the most important things, right? And it sounds silly, but the more often you change it, the harder it gets for hackers to guess your password, right? Because there are software out there that will, if they access your password file, they will automatically try to guess the password. We call it password cracker. So it will crack your password. If your password is simple, you think it's complex, but it's simple. You use street names of Hawaii. The database is in that database already. Any possible combination of the street name, your birth date, and so forth. Right?
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, yes.
What about as a recommendation to this group of CEOs anxious to hear what you have to say? What about this problem of something is coming up that seems strange, and what kind of advice do you give a company or a power plant when that happens?
Well, this is a thing that I learned in a nuclear facility, right? When I started working there, it's in any nuclear facility, there's this concept called when in doubt, stop. Ask your supervisor, right? So translate this to electronic world. If you see an email that seems funny, you see things that's not clear, stop. If you keep guessing your passwords and it doesn't work, stop. Call your technical people. Don't go forward. Don't go further. If you receive a phone call, right, and most CEO has secretaries, and so their calls probably pre-filtered. But if you, let's say, your cell phone's trying to call you, you're in the middle of something, and if you're not sure, stop. Right. So those a lot of people try to be smart and do things on their own. But one of the things that I recommend to people, if you're not sure anything, just stop.
What's this whole concept called a zero-day threat? What is that? Is that a recommendation?
It is a recommendation that most people kind of ignore, because people think that I have the best system, I have the best software protection, I have the best antivirus protection.
Right.
But all the software, basically the software is code, right? The codes are being designed by somebody based on known threats. So based on previous threats, here is my defense. Right? You're going to do this to me, I'm going to create a code to prevent that. A zero-day threat is happening right now. So the company doesn't have time to respond. A new code attacking. So if I'm sending you a new virus that nobody else knows, or is so unique, that's what's called a zero-day threat, because there's no time to respond. It's a zero-day threat.
What do you do to protect against that?
There's nothing you can do, because then you just have to be very aware that there is a potential zero-day threat. If you follow all the your policy and procedures, and all the preventive stuff, right? If all your system is working, you should be protected by zero-day threat. But however, it's the human element, the human weaknesses that, let's say I give you this virus, right? A DVD David, I got an X on DVD, go check on your computer. You just pop it in, that's zero-day threat. And boom, then your system is going to go down, right?
What about the whole topic of malware? Is there some kind of recommendation you can make with respect to malware?
I think the malware is, most companies are, they have anti-malware systems, right? So you just have to make sure it's on all the time, it's being upgraded, it's being, we call it patch. The patch is a new code that is being provided. So your patch version has to be updated all the time, because it's very common nowadays, right?
I want to get into a topic called cyber espionage.
Okay.
And we want to talk about the espionage and how that works and how you prevent that. But let's do that after the break.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got more to come. Stay with us. I'm David Day for Asian Review, and this is Mr. Amin Leiman, a U.S. nuclear power plant security consultant.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Hori for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Hori. Mahalo. Hello.
We're back. This is Asian Review, ThinkTech's global broadcast. We're talking about cybersecurity for the essential business. And right in the middle of this, We're talking about nuclear power plants with a U.S. nuclear power plant security consultant, Mr. Amin Leiman, who was formerly the IT auditor for Hawaiian Electric Industries. Did I get that right?
IT Audit Director.
IT Audit Director, okay. And before we get into the issue of cyber espionage, a really good segue is, I understand we have a caller from Melbourne, Australia that has put a question to us, and so could we have the question from Melbourne, please?
Yes, David. A caller called from Melbourne, Australia during the show and asked the following question: what is the impact of the National Security Agency's PRISM, P-R-I-S-M, program on cybersecurity for nuclear power plants? That's the question.
Okay, I mean, did you hear the question, Hori?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So, what do you think? We're getting into the area of cyber espionage now. We'll start out with the NSA's PRISM program.
Right. So, any nuclear facilities, the what I call the inner computer systems actually being segregated from the outer computer system.
Means they're not connected.
They're not connected digitally, right?
Okay.
And physically. Right? Physically and digitally not connected. So there are no connections.
So go back to my medieval castle.
Correct.
They're inside the inner.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So they are well protected, yes.
So the NSA PRISM program, no need to get information about a nuclear power plant and not able to get into the inner circle. Is that what you're saying?
Technically, if the controls are working, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, technically.
Well,
yes.
I hope our caller who posed the question from Melbourne, I hope that answers your question here. But let's use that as a segue now into the whole field of cyber espionage. Now, what's that all about?
Well,
I mean,
cyber espionage is a very robust and active in the international community, right? Especially a country like China, right? There's a lot of the cyber espionage has been actually detected and originated from China, right? So the objective is, again, to gain an unauthorized data that can be, one, sell as commodity on the internet, right? Because there's pricing on all this password and username, blah, blah, blah. But second of all, is actually being used to go in any computer system. In my early example is banking, for example, online banking, right? If I can get into your online banking systems, then I can gain information. So that's an espionage, right? Gaining information to get into the systems.
you know, yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, there was an article about cyber espionage teams that had using a malicious software called IceFog to penetrate into a Korean electronics maker and pull out specific files of information. Now that's a precise example of what you're talking about, isn't it?
Right. And if you make it broader, there are a lot of drawings, right? That whether there's a unique or secret drawings in any companies, blueprints, if you will.
Okay.
There are also project documents. In your case, you're an attorney, so you have, you know,
Some kind of plan.
debriefs, whatever, right? If I can hack into that, that's an espionage itself, right?
So the prevention and blockage of that type of espionage is essentially the same series of recommendations and techniques that you've talked about in insulating a nuclear power plant or another essential business bank.
All businesses operate based on defense of depth. Right? So you have first layer, second layer, third layer, and along all these layers, there are two pieces of equipment that is common. One of them is called IPS. Well, first is IPS is intrusion prevention services, right? So this is whether it's a software you install or you subscribe to a service. It's like an alarm. Prevent somebody to come in. And then there's IDS, which is intrusion detection services. So once they get in, then they're going to start tripping, and then somebody needs to react on it, right? So those two systems are already in place.
What's the reaction that they have to do? They create another code really fast, or?
Well, they usually, their reaction is they'll probably go to a different, a weaker targets, right? So they usually don't go after. Once they see there's a good defense, they'll just move on. I don't think, because a good security system will have the ability to track down the potential attackers and so forth. By then, the authority will get involved.
Okay. I mean, I really want to thank you for spending time with us today. I know that it's very interesting that you were formerly the IT Audit Director with Hawaiian Electric, and kind of checking on their cybersecurity systems, and now you've moved on from that position to a nuclear power plant security consultant, and so you're actually in the if I can call it, the counterterrorism team. But I mean, this has been a fascinating discussion, and I appreciate you taking the time to come down to ThinkTech here and talk with us. And I'm sure our audience, you've learned a lot from this discussion, and something to think about, because instead of just talking about the broad policy of cybersecurity, we've been involved in talking about the how to hack and some of the preventive lines of defense that exist. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this program. This is a ThinkTech Global broadcast, and this has been Asian Review. I'm your host, David Day. I hope you have a safe drive home, and we look forward to seeing you and having you join us with another conversation down the road in the future. Good night.